$1.9 trillion is how much the Democrats want to spend on socialist dream plans described as, well, COVID relief. Do you know how much $1 trillion is? You ready for this? It's a million. Think of it this way. For $1 million, you could buy an amazing house in Dallas, Texas. And I mean amazing. With $1 trillion, you could buy everyone in Dallas that $1 million house. With what the Democrats want to spend here, we could buy everyone in Dallas and Detroit a $1 million home. Everyone in those two cities. It's unbelievable. The number is staggering. If the Democrats get their way, our nation's debt is set to surge to nearly $30 trillion. That's over $210,000 of debt per household in the United States. Now, I'll ask you, could you have done a better job spending the $210,000 than the government has? Well, of course you could have. I understand we need money for our national defense, for our roads, for our infrastructure, to run the courts and judicial system. But beyond that, the federal government needs to just get out of the way. Instead, under Joe Biden, it does just the opposite. Right now, to pay off our nation's debt, you could take nearly every penny made by the 330 million Americans this year, and we still would not pay off what we owe as a nation. So here's the real problem. The Democrats don't care. They're more concerned about promising you free stuff, a mailbox full of cash, for instance, just to keep the power. And they do it with no regard for our future, our kids' future, your kids' future. This soundbite from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki sums it up.
The president's bottom line is that this is a package. The risk here, as he has said many times, is not going too big. It is going too small.
The president is worried $1.9 trillion is too small, even when most of the stimulus spending so far has been grossly ineffective. That's a fact, by the way. Of the already approved $4 trillion for China virus relief, $1.3 trillion has yet to be spent. And yet Joe Biden wants more money. Right now, the unemployment rate is just under 7%. During the recession of 2009, it was well over 10%. At the height of the pandemic, it soared to over 14%. So we're actually in a decent spot. Not the best, but decent. But don't listen to Bernie Sanders. He wants you to believe it's the end of times right now.
Now is not the time to count pennies. Now is the time to address these monumental crises.
I wish we were counting pennies. Forget about pennies. We're now counting billions. We are digging a hole we will never be able to get out of. Future generations will suffer. Economic growth will slow. People will earn lower incomes, and economic opportunity will be much harder to come by. This is all a guarantee. But apparently, economists like Paul Krugman think that's, quote, not that big of a problem.
There's been a real sea change in mainstream economic views that says the debt is just not that big of a problem. Now, if you want to disagree with that, okay, but the Republican Party has no standing to do that. They just have no credibility.
I would like to disagree with it. Right here, I disagree with it. And there's nothing mainstream about going into debt like this. Unless, of course, you're an elected leader in Washington, then they all don't care. Now, he calls himself an economist. He and the Democrats seem to think that you can just print money, print as much as you like with no repercussions. That is like saying you can eat a box of donuts every night without getting fat. That should be common sense, right? The more money you print, the less it's worth. At a time when so many businesses are suffering, what does the Biden, Schumer, Sanders clan want to scare us into doing? How about instituting a $15 minimum wage? So while claiming to help small businesses, they'll instead push many of them to the breaking point, leaving workers with not a $15 an hour job, but no job at all. So Democrats point to Amazon and its support of the wage increase. Well, workers, in return, are hailing Amazon leaders as heroes, but they are being duped. Have you seen an Amazon sorting facility recently? This stuff is amazing that you're watching on your screen there. The company is constantly reducing its workforce in favor of robots. Why? Because robots work 24/7. They don't complain. They don't even make mistakes. They certainly don't join unions, so it's easy to push for a $15 an hour minimum wage when your workforce consists of machines that don't need health care or even get paid. If you're a fast food worker, you're in for it too. Restaurants like McDonald's have been at the forefront of installing self-order kiosks in an effort to reduce their workforce in preparation of a devastating blow like a $15 an hour minimum wage. The bottom line is, Democrats are embarking on a path to destroy millions of Americans' job prospects, and their jobs, by the way, all while making the masses more reliant on government. That's what they want. It's a recipe for disaster. They will do more harm to our fragile economy than good. And remember, they don't care. They're using your money to buy your votes. The future of our country be damned.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.